one of the questions that he had given to us was wrong. And he was like, no, no, no.
Welcome back to Hype's She Is Me college interview series. Today, Mira is going to be talking to us about how to find a community within STEM and some of the struggles that come with trying to find that community and mentorship.
Have you felt any of the same, I guess, barriers that you experienced in high school in terms of being doubted for your abilities in STEM classes in your time at UCLA, or has it been very different from what you experienced earlier on in high school?
I definitely have been in classes where it's like primarily male,
Mm.
but I don't think my attitude towards it is the same as it was in high school. I think a part of it is probably that a lot of them have been online. Like in my memory right now, a lot of them are like online, and then I don't really notice the gender disparity as much because everyone's cameras are turned off, and like, I like it's just really me, a professor. I feel like, um, but thinking back to my like past STEM classes at UCLA, I think the environment is a lot more diverse. I think the university does a really good job of keeping it diverse and trying to keep up the number of women in STEM that they recruit. And I think there's also a really strong community here on campus. I'm a part of the Women in Physical Sciences organization at UCLA and the Center for Diverse Leadership in Science. And there's just so many organizations that really like work to uplift students here. And I really appreciate that. I think it undoubtedly has an impact because you feel represented, you feel like your issues are being heard. If um I have had some TAs that have like I think doubted me. For example, I have this one story. I went in to a TA's office hours and I was trying to explain to him that one of the questions that he had given to us was wrong, and like the graph didn't match the equation that he had given. It was something as simple as that. And he was like, no, no, no. He kept disagreeing with me. Like I graphed it out for him and he was like, no. And then eventually I like explained it to him like one more time. I was like, I'm 100% sure this is wrong. And as soon as he checked it for himself, he suddenly had all of this like newfound respect for me. And it was a very like funny interaction in my eyes at the end of it because then he was like, oh, do you have any more questions? And he was like trying to invite more conversation. And I was happy that I had eventually earned like him listening to me about what the problem was and that it had been incorrect. But I think it wasn't even it didn't impact me in a way where I felt unheard in the long run because I knew that I was right. And I knew that at the end of the day I was able to like convince him of that. And I think um it really does help that I've done well and been able to still build communities within my STEM classes. Like in every class that I've had, I've been able to like find someone that I can talk to about what's going on in the class. And I think the fact that people are even so friendly in classes does imply that like the atmosphere isn't as hostile as some of the ones in my high school classes.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And you mentioned community, and you also talked before about the mentorship program that you want to be a part of. What has the role of mentorship and community been in helping you on this STEM journey?
I think community is really important because a lot of STEM classes are brutal at like in general at any school. I think especially undergraduate, like lower division classes, they're literally called weeder classes. Like they're meant to be like exceptionally hard so that you decide like, oh, this major isn't for me. Um, and so I really think that being able to form like communities within your classes is important. But I do recognize that a lot of these classes aren't as diverse as they should be. And so that's where, as I was talking about earlier, like those organizations that I'm in, like they do help connect students who might need that more assistance in finding a community. It's like literal organizations on campus. But apart from that, I think that being able to find a community within like hard classes or classes that are really important for your major is super important. And for me, I haven't so much found that physics community that's perfectly right for me. I know I'm a part of UCLA Society of Physics Students, but I haven't. A lot of them are like in higher what's it called? They're like in higher grades than me, so they've
Mm,
taken a lot of the classes that I have like not taken yet, and so they don't feel particularly as much of my peers. They can advise me in more of a mentorship role, but the physics major at UCLA is pretty small. So I feel like my community isn't as big as like some of the other like engineering majors I know here at UCLA. But nevertheless, I do always try and like create a community within my classes in order to ensure like mutual success and also just have someone to like talk to about what's going on. But one thing is a lot of the classes that I've taken here have been huge. And so I think it's not even a community of like the entire class necessarily. It's like smaller divisions. But I do anticipate like when I go into upper divs and I'm in classes with like only 20 students, a lot of the issues from like high school of perhaps like feeling overlooked for like my being a woman could come up more because like I could be in classes where the gender disparity would actually be noticed as opposed to like such large classrooms where it's like on Zoom and you can't sometimes even tell. But then on the other side of mentorship, I talked about my high school physics teacher earlier. And again, like I am applying for these mentorship programs at UCLA. I'm really excited about my women in physical sciences mentor. Like I really want to find someone who can help guide me through like going through my undergraduate experience, just because I sometimes feel a little bit like afloat. Like I'm not really 100% sure like what I'm doing. And again, it's such a big school. There's not necessarily someone there that's like waiting to help you in the sense that there might have been in high school, like you have an academic counselor or like everyone's kind of doing the same thing. Whereas here, I think having a mentor, especially to guide you through the tougher times, is super important. And like I always talked to my like junior year high school teacher, Miss Shreve, about the struggles that I was facing. I remember specifically venting to her all the time about my AP computer science class and how they were all boys, and I was so like I felt so underappreciated in that class. And then she talked to me a lot about how she was the only female in her graduating class that was a physics student. Like the rest of the physics students were males. And so I literally always remember that, especially now that I'm a physics student, because there definitely is a disparity. Even though the physics major is so small, like you can still notice a disparity. But I hope that it will get better, and I think it already has gotten better since her time graduating.